those dark areas on the moon as mares or seas. We now know that they're just craters filled with lava and broken, pummeled by billions of years of meteorite particles, breaking them into very fine dust. Now the same thing happens on the backside, but it's not lava, there's much lava on the backside. It's just soft powder. And on the front side and the back side is just dirt, fine talcum powder consistency dirt. But on the front side it's mostly it's more basalt, and on the back side it's just normal planetary stuff. But as I tried to point out, we have not seen anything, and some people say otherwise, but we have not seen anything in the pictures, and I know of nothing that indicates our visitors have had bases on the moon. That isn't to say they don't or haven't, but there's nothing visible in any of the photographs or any of the observations that I have, that I'm aware of, that would cause us to believe that. Okay.
Colleagues have.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I wondered if you know if there's any degree of truth to the rumor that's been floated the whole time that many of the astronauts have seen UFOs during their trips. Do you know if that's true or not?
No. There's quite a few of the astronauts in their military careers prior to becoming astronauts, like Gordon Cooper and Dick Slayton and a few others in their Air Force careers were vectored after a UFO or tried to chase one, is unsuccessful because they always either disappeared or ran away. But up through the Apollo program and the Skylab program, which I was more intimately connected with, there were no confirmed UFO sightings in space. Now we did see things that turned out not to be abnormal at all. They were later identified as just debris, or they were happened to be maybe a spent rocket stage. But as far as UFOs, up through the Skylab program, the colleagues I have spoken with, nothing abnormal was sighted.
I'd like to make one more observation, and pretty much for everybody that's here. The Army has a unit headquartered at the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama, called the Space Missile Defense Command. Space Missile Defense Command.
Okay.
Their shoulder patches read space fighters. If you call down there, they're very open, and they have a website, smdc.army.mil. And I was talking to an executive down there in the late 90s, and I said, oh, so you're the ones that are going to protect us from the ETs. Very matter of fact, the answer was, well, we think we can. So the idea that the government has suppressed this, hasn't acted on it, is totally wrong. The Reagan Star Wars program actually means space fighting. And we have a military unit that's prepared for it, and it's dubious that that organization exists relative to topics that the government completely denies exist.
I'm unfamiliar with that, although I was technical director for the Manned Orbiting Laboratory program back in the early 60s when that first was initiated and then collapsed. But I'm quite well aware that there are other programs going on all the time, which I am not aware of in any matter of detail. But thank you for your time.
smdc.army.mil.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump into an occasional question, and this one is related to that a little bit, Edgar.
Where are you, Steve?
Steve, I'm right here, right here. Steve, I'm hiding here in the corner here. I'm sitting down so I don't fall and hurt myself. You know, the whole SDI program, Space Defense Initiative, was extraordinarily controversial. Carl Sagan got involved. A lot of people didn't think it would work. Platforms. And there's a lot of reasonable speculation that the SDI wasn't just about, quote, building weapons in space or to help defend ourselves against the Soviet Union. And did you get any feedback along the ways from anyone in the know that there was an extraterrestrial aspect to the SDI program?
Only vaguely. I did write a manuscript which I still have called "When Pop to the Guard to Hen House," having to do with weapons in space. And that manuscript I still have in my files, but to tell what the government thought of it, 34 publishers turned me down because I was trying to blow the whistle on putting weapons in space, and it didn't. But unfortunately, it didn't go forward. But neither did my manuscript.
I feel better because that makes me feel better about the fact that my manuscript was turned down by that many publishers. So, okay, next question.
Good morning, sir. I have sort of a practical question and more of an esoteric question. I may not phrase it right, so help me out.
Go ahead.
We hear a lot right now about the fact that we really don't have the technology to get us off planet or to another
I'm
solar
sorry, I'm not hearing you about your technology. What?
I've read that we currently don't have the technology or capability to transport the human species out of the solar system or off the planet far enough. So the first question is really practically based. What do we need to invent and build to get the human species to another ecosystem environment? But going along with that line of thought, do you think that our essential humanness is contingent on living in these bodies? Or would you foresee at some, thousands of years later, could we project some aspect of our consciousness into some other kind of a system or life form? And I think Michio Kaku's talked about, you might have to make an information stream and send it off through some alternate transport.
Let me address your questions in the order. First of all, I do think we'll probably be able to get outside of our solar system, and I've written a paper on that, by the end of this century. But we're going to have to bridge the gap between general relativity and quantum mechanics, and we haven't done that yet. There's some real elusive answers there that it's not clear how we're going to do it. But it is clear that the aliens have done it, and how they've done it through wormholes or what other device they call them. That's a concept within general relativity. I'm not sure that's the right concept, but nevertheless, that is the area of breakthrough that we have to have before we can get there. The second question has to do with the nature of consciousness itself, and we have not really resolved that problem either. And of course, there are multi-dimensional theories which are not well formed, and it appears that string theory, brain theory, M theory, which are attempts at multi-dimensional theories, are kind of falling apart on us right now. They're not really substantial theories and not holding water. But the work at the LHC, due to resume this year in Switzerland, may help us shed some brand new light on that. However, the issue of consciousness is one that's still out. One of my early investors and board persons with Institute of Nordic Sciences was John Fetzer. I don't know how many know that name, but John owned television stations in the Michigan area and more broadly, and the Detroit baseball team and a few other things. He's a wealthy philanthropist, and he was on my board.